Sir John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning's Foreign Affairs Select Committee session lasted 2.5 hours and was certainly one of the more remarkable that I've attended, and I have been involved in a number of quite controversial Select Committee hearings over the years. I do think that it showed the Select Committee system at its best, and members across the House worked together, and it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Hales-Owen, a fellow member of the committee who spoke earlier. And I also share his view that Sir Ollie Robbins, who gave us evidence, put in an impressive performance. He is clearly angry at the way he has been treated, and he does have a distinguished career which has been brought to a premature end, and clearly he is very upset by that. But in his evidence, he did make some extraordinary revelations. He, of course, had given evidence to the committee last year in November when, as the chair of the committee suggested in our introduction, we may have heard the truth and nothing but the truth, but probably not the whole truth. This morning we heard a lot more of the whole truth. And what became absolutely clear, and had already been suggested at the previous hearing, was that number 10 Downing Street was absolutely determined that Lord Mandelson should become the ambassador of his country to the United States. So Ollie told us that his predecessor, Philip Barton, had strongly advised that this should not happen until after the developed vetting process had been completed. But despite that advice from the senior permanent Under-Secretary of the Foreign Office, it was ignored. And indeed, the Cabinet Office, we are told, then went on to suggest that developed vetting might not even be necessary. And yet this was not just a routine appointment. It was not routine for two reasons. Firstly, it was the appointment of probably the most important ambassadorial post that this country has. And secondly, very, very unusually, it was a direct ministerial appointment. Most of the time, ambassadorial appointments are made from within the civil service, and people have already had that vetting procedure. This was somebody who was being brought in from the outside, who had not been vetted, and already had a track record of having twice had to resign from government. I'll give way.
I thank the right honourable member for giving way. And the role of the Prime Minister is the highest honour in UK politics and demands sound judgment. And the reality is there was no sound judgment when he did appoint him a disgraced individual who had 2 resignations and well-documented associations with a sex offender. And what we hear from the Labour benches today is lambs to the slaughter. They are defending the indefensible, and the general public are hearing that today and are hearing how disgraced this place is by the decision of the Prime Minister to appoint Peter Mandelson.
I completely agree with the Honourable Lady, and it's somehow being suggested from the other side, but it was people advising the Prime Minister. I think one speaker earlier said the Prime Minister had been persuaded to appoint him. Well, I worked for the Prime Minister, and she coined a phrase, officials advise, ministers decide. And in this case, it was the decision, as she says, of the Prime Minister. But Ollie Robbins also pointed out that actually, by the time he took up his position, essentially he was presented with a fait accompli. He actually set out to us. He said, I took over as PUS on the 20th of January. He then said, already due diligence had been completed, and we know that that process, which included interview with Morgan McSweeney, had revealed the ongoing relationship between Lord Mandelson and Peter Epstein, but that was ignored. We were told that approval of the appointment had already been given by the King. It had been announced publicly to the press. Agreement had been given from the United States, which is, and Sir Ollie Robbins made this clear, but that is not just a formality. There is a very significant development. He'd also been given to the FCDO building and IT access. And finally, he was being granted access to highly classified briefing on a case-by-case basis. All of that had happened. And so I asked Sir Ollie Robbins if, given all of that was already in place, if now he were to have the appointment withdrawn, would that not damage our relationship with the United States of America? To which he replied very clearly, yes, it would. My right honourable friend, the member for Goole, has already set out, but actually we already had a very good ambassador in Washington, but nevertheless, Downing Street had said to the US administration that they wanted Lord Mandelson to be appointed, and the White House had given their agreement through the agreement procedure. So for Sir Ollie Robbins then to withdraw the appointment would have been a real damage to our foreign policy. Now, you can argue that if Sir Ollie Robbins were told that the UKSV process had resulted in a clear recommendation denial, then he might, or perhaps even should, still have done so. But he also told us this morning, but he wasn't told that. We were told that he didn't see the UKSV report. We were told that he didn't even see, in fact, he didn't even know about the fact that the report has a red box with a tick in it saying deny. He said he'd never seen those documents before, and that would be normal because it is a very restricted access for the reasons actually the Honourable Gentleman for Halesowen set out. And so all he was told was that there had been leaning towards refusal, and it was a borderline case. Now, whether or not that was an accurate reflection of what the report actually said is another matter, and we can perhaps debate at what stage or how far the message from Downing Street, we want this person to be appointed, had been transmitted to try and make it as possible as it was. But what we are told is that after Sir Ollie Robbins had arrived as Permanent Secretary, he was subjected to regular calls from Number 10 saying, get it done. And he also told us that it wasn't get it done subject to security clearance, which in his view it should have been, that the press release put out announcing the appointment of Lord Mandelson didn't say subject to security clearance. Subject to security clearance was never mentioned. This was announced as a decision that had already been taken. Why? That is a matter that we can that is open to conjecture. There is the view of the some on the other side that it was somehow a reward for services given in getting the Prime Minister the job, or the leader of the Liberal Party has said it may all be to do with the trying to cosy up to President Trump, although, as my honourable friend pointed out, actually our previous ambassador had done a really good job in representing this country to President Trump. We may never know. What we do know is that the Prime Minister was absolutely determined that that appointment should be made. And even after the appointment had been made, and when all of these things began to become revealed, in particular the ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which the Prime Minister said that he was unaware of the closeness of, and he was very angry when he was told, there had already been inquiries being made. Journalists have been ringing up Number 10 and saying, but we've been told he failed his security vetting. And Number 10 put out a denial. Now, Number 10, you would expect, if journalists were calling up saying, is it true that actually he didn't pass the UKSV assessment and they recommended denial of security vetting, that before just saying, no, that's complete rubbish, they might actually begin to ask questions. They might say to the Prime Minister, you should be aware we've had an inquiry about this. But no, apparently none of that happened, or if it did happen, again, it was simply swept under the carpet. The end result of this process is that for over a year, this country had, representing it at the most senior level, in the America, which is our closest ally, someone who the security agencies have concluded is a security risk. We do not know the full extent of the damage that may have been done during that time. The Deputy Speaker, I'm afraid, is coughing at me, so I won't give way. But I fear that there is still more to come, and I can say, I hope on behalf of the Select Committee, that we will continue to pursue this.